We've talked at times about the state of the real estate market. We check in on those things with usually some of the local professionals around this area. I was intrigued, though, by a story from Paula Gardner at MLive, and the headline reads, "It's a great time to sell. So why is there a home inventory crisis going on?" And Paula Gardner with MLive joins us now to talk about what she uncovered. Hi, Paula.
Good morning.
Thank you for the time today.
Oh, sure. I'm happy to be here. I love talking real estate.
Well, and this is really something that's been going on for a little while now, and it seems to be odd in that if it really is a seller's market, we ought to be all running for a sign for the front yard.
Yeah, that's what I thought, too, because it seems like we're watching prices go up, up, up. And it stands to reason that many sellers also want different housing, even though many people are competing to buy the properties that do come on the market. But instead of more properties coming onto the market, in many communities in Michigan, fewer actually are coming on the market, which in turn drives the housing prices up in those communities. And it's just the inventory situation is just getting worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've certainly seen around my neighborhood houses pop up and they're gone within months, if not weeks or days. And we presume there's just a batch of buyers out there waiting to pounce.
Yeah, some of the places where I'm familiar with, like Ann Arbor, is the place where I'm living, and I've been there for about 17 years. I actually bought my house 17 years ago in a market much like this. I bought my house. I made an offer. I had never even been on the second floor.
Oh my.
That's how badly we wanted our house. And that's happening again, except there are more offers coming in. So we've seen houses probably go within maybe 24 hours of listing. And that's obviously not sold, but committed to sell, with multiple offers. And multiple to me used to mean 3. That used to be kind of exciting when you get 3 or 4 offers at one time.
No kidding.
I talked to one realtor who talked about getting 15 offers within 48 hours, and I just couldn't even imagine how 14 people are going to be disappointed with that transaction.
No kidding.
So,
gosh. And is the decision mostly being made based on price? So, one of those 15 is coming through with the cash and they get it?
a lot of the terms are changing, too. So it's been a while since I bought a house, and I didn't realize that some prospective buyers are writing into their purchase offer things like, I'll make the offer and I want it inspected, but don't worry, I'm not going to come back to you and ask you to fix anything the inspection turns up. It's just for my information only, which,
wow.
That's a risk. That's a big risk.
No kidding.
Yeah, and then other things, too, like with the housing prices in many communities escalating so much, the appraisals aren't coming back to the lenders. And as I wrote in my article, I talked to a lender. They talk about the lending regulations are still pretty strict out there. So if you're not buying a house with cash and you have to go to a bank, only certain people can get a loan still, the perfect credit, et cetera. So they're saying, if the house doesn't appraise for the loan that I want, I'm just going to bring extra cash. That's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to ask you to take less. So the terms of these offers are changing in these hot markets.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
So I've just been letting some of what you just said sink in a second, Paula. So buyers are willing to be less worried about what a home inspection might turn up just so they get the house.
Yes.
That's pretty crazy.
It's inconceivable to me. I can't even imagine because, I'm assuming they may be contractors or have friends who are familiar with construction work, possibly walking through with them. That would never have been our case. So I think it's an enormous risk, but that is just another sign of the heated market in many places.
So the real question then is, if there is such demand out there, why aren't more of us listing?
Yeah, I think, when I ask people what will it take, it seems like the answers are varied. When many of us, and I'm thinking of myself here, but all these people who aren't selling, if they've been in their house maybe 8 years, 10 years, they've ridden through the recession, and that was the worst housing crisis, hopefully, we'll ever see in our lifetime. But at that time, the values of our houses went down so low, and we saw how bad it could get.
Yeah.
Tax rates also went down, and that's a trailing indicator. That's something that happens over time, very slowly. But now we're at a point where they're climbing very slowly. In most communities, again, where values are rising. So if you've been in your house for some time, you may be looking at what else is out there and thinking, I cannot get anything nicer for the money that I'll get out of my house. I'll end up just paying the same amount, and also I'll be paying more in taxes because everything's changed.
Right.
And for the new property. So then again, I use my own example. When we considered looking at a house a couple of years ago, we realized that it would cost us several $100s a month more for something that we didn't consider dramatically different. We weren't going into, some crazy range of pricing. We just wanted something with a little more recreation space for the teenagers. We would have been paying hundreds more just in taxes. And that's just something we weren't willing to do. And I think a lot of potential sellers, a lot of homeowners are actually looking at the math and realizing, economically, it just doesn't work for them on a number of levels, even though they could get a higher price for their home.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a stumbling block that I presume that folks who are keen to economic development and the housing market and so on are wondering if that's going to be a big problem going forward.
Yeah, I have to wonder that too. And of course, the home building industry is feeling the effects of all of this as well. So when you apply some of these aspects to the home builders, they're not building the spec houses unless they're super large production builders. So kind of the mid-sized builder, maybe the local builder who is really good at acquiring land and developing lots, they're not building houses in the same volume so that people can actually move into them now. Mm-hmm. You have to end up getting a construction loan, waiting 5 months, and actually signing a contract for the specific house to be built. So it's changing that industry too. And that's something that we have to watch a little bit because that has such a ripple effect on our economy.
Right. Sure. And if there's concern that even though there's low inventory, that they're going to build a spec house and they don't know how long they're going to hold on to it after it's built, there's holding costs involved in all of that. They're going to be trepidatious about that.
Exactly. And, and that's an industry that's not going to forget the Great Recession either. A lot of builders got burned at that time. Yeah. A lot of them made a lot of money. Prices were rising so fast. And I'm thinking South Florida now. How fast were the prices rising? You could build a spec house thinking, I'm going to make this much, and then suddenly you're making $50,000 or $100,000 more. But that's over, right?
Yeah, certainly not happening around here right now. Pretty interesting. We're talking with Paula Gardner with MLive. One of the things you alluded to a minute ago and you brought up in your article is the notion of credit and borrowing. It is a situation in which, after all that we've been through with the housing crisis and the real estate crash and everything, we're still looking at lending institutions that are very concerned about the details, aren't they?
They are very concerned about the details, and that's good. There were a lot of mistakes made, 10, 15 years ago, and that got us into the worst crisis that we'll ever see, we hope, again. So as a result, that's kind of a pendulum. It's went back the other way. Lots of regulations right now. The underwriters are looking at every application very, very stringently. So anybody who has any kind of blip on a credit report, that's going to impact whether they can get a loan or not just what type of loan they can get. And sometimes those blips might be a divorce. It might be a short sale. It might be things that, felt like a normal course of living, when it happened. But right now, the lenders actually can count that against folks. And there's the effect. It's not easy to get a home loan right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, boy, that's a change, isn't it? I mean, I remember when the crash happened, we were trying to look back and talk a little bit about what had gone on, and there were some folks who said, you could have been a 2-year-old and gotten a mortgage back then.
It's true. It's true. You could have gotten cash when you got that mortgage too, probably.
Yeah,
right?
pull some money out of equity, right? Is that going on at all? Did you pick up any of that? Are people able to access the equity they have?
Well, yeah, Yeah, people are able to do home refinances, but you're not getting into the exotic situations where you buy a house for $110,000 and then you come out of it with $5,000 because they wrote the loan for more than the house is actually worth.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening at all. And to me, that's kind of a barometer for how bad is it going to get in the future. You have to watch those exotic products and think, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But as far as the home equity is concerned, yeah, if you've been in your home for some time, you might end up with a cash-out refinance, even with a few blips on your credit. And people are doing that. All of the values are going up. In theory, there's more that we can take out. We might not be able to get to 90% anymore, but we can get to 65%.
Mm-hmm.
And then people are using that to repair or enhance their homes. So as one realtor told me, the contractors are very busy. I don't know if you've tried to have any work done in your home recently, but, I had somebody tell me back in May that they would be happy to fix our patio, and we could book for any week in September.
Yeah.
So that was not going to fly.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that. We talk with a contractor every week here in Battle Creek, and he, in fact, we did a whole segment on this recently that you really have to adjust your expectations. You can't call them today and have them come out and build you a deck tomorrow or next week. They're just booked.
Right. So anybody planning a graduation party for next year, start planning it now. That's my best advice.
Right. You want the screened-in porch or the deck or the patio done for next year. You've got to secure that time now. So what were you able to learn about how long this crisis might go on?
That was a tougher one. All of these situations, they're related, but they're not in some respects. Some of it is just, as we talked, the homeowner attitude and kind of working the numbers and what do they want from a home. I find it fascinating to consider what Americans want from a home, or what Michigan residents want from a home. Because, when you consider new construction, those houses are just getting bigger. And there was a time where you could buy a house for, a typical middle-class family, maybe 3 or 4 bedrooms, a family room, a basement you could finish yourself. And I think those homes are still probably available in some areas, but the average new house is much larger than people who looked for a home 20 years ago remember.
Mm-hmm.
The average American wants different types of things. And when you think about, if I'm in my house now and I want this, I want what those typical Americans want, am I willing to pay for it? And it becomes a real kind of psychological dance. And those are the types of things that I find fascinating. How will the market respond? How will a potential seller respond? But other things are changing too. People like living in downtowns. Many Michigan downtowns are seeing a resurgence. There's condos. There's the older homes are being renovated, and that's a very exciting thing for these cities. But it changes the housing supply. You can't just go into a green field and build 250 new homes. So there's really a limited supply in these downtowns. So I think, but just how we want to live is changing by the year, and that's going to have an impact too.
Well, that whole urban living thing is a model that a lot of municipalities are basing their future development plans on. We certainly are here in Battle Creek, that's for sure.
Yeah,
well,
that's
interesting.
Exciting.
Yeah, right, it is. Well, we appreciate your time today and telling us a little bit more about what you were able to learn. Paula's article is at MLive.com. It's called A Great Time to Sell. So why is there a home inventory crisis? Paula Gardner, thank you very much for that. And we'll be watching for updates on your other stories as well. Thank you.